Hi there, I'm Deep Dhillon. Welcome to YourAI Injection, the podcast where we discuss state-of-the-art techniques in artificial intelligence with a focus on how these capabilities are used to transform organizations, making them more efficient, impactful, and successful. Hey everybody, thanks so much. This is Deep Dhillon, your host, and today we'll be talking about leveraging generative AI for art and interior design. Our guest today is Gavriel Wolf. Gavriel is the CEO and founder of Indiewalls, a full-service art consultancy that assists clients in discovering and commissioning impactful art collections while managing design needs, sourcing, printing, and framing. Thanks so much, Gavi, for being here. Super excited to talk art. Maybe we can get started. Tell us a little bit about your personal journey. It sounds like had some early interest in photography to becoming a founder and CEO at Indiewalls. How did you kind of transition that passion for photography, into entrepreneurship?
Thanks for asking, and thanks for hosting me, Deep. Appreciate it. So, when I was younger, probably when I was in my teens, I got into photography and got into kind of old school photography and dark rooms, and right as the transition was happening to digital photography, and I was like, digital photography, it's not going to be that good. Like digital photography, the quality is not that good. Analog is way better. So I still got into darkroom right as it was transitioning, and I really liked the sort of magical piece to it. The magical piece of the physical creation. You're in the room,
chemicals, the cool lighting,
the cool lighting,
and then watching the image like emerge on the page. Yeah, that's exciting.
Totally. And I also really like the sciences, and I did a bunch of chemistry in college. I liked all the pieces coming together. I like the creative aspect to it. Like you took a shot, how do you get it right? The idea of setting a camera in such a way where you could get an animal moving in the middle of the night, just how you play with movement and light and timing in the physical world. So I really love that. Funnily enough, I didn't think of it as an art form per se when I was doing it. It was just something that I found enjoyable and creative and different. Then I went off to college. I got into environmental sciences, chemistry, business, a couple of different majors. And while I was on campus, though, I had always kind of wanted to create something. There was some entrepreneurship in my family, and I wanted to create a business of some sort. I had a couple different ideas, but I was in a cafe on campus, and there was this artist who had created work. Her name was Alice Molbeck, I believe, and just had a really cool artwork. It was very thought-provoking, and I really wanted to buy the piece, and there wasn't a good way to buy it. I could write her a check or I could get out cash, but I was young, so I didn't have a checkbook and couldn't take out that much cash out of my ATM. Like, I have a credit card, but that wasn't the way that it was being bought, and I thought,
this is pre-Square and all that stuff where artists just have a little block in their pocket or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a cafe, call the phone number, go to her, hand her some cash or give her a check. That was kind of how she thought about it. And I thought, it'd be really cool if this artwork in these cafes, these creatives are creating, could be brought online and everybody could kind of just purchase it online. So that was kind of the original idea, and I just liked creativity. I just was inspired by it generally. I knew I had moments of inspiration. And again, it wasn't like, oh, I'm an art aficionado or I just love artwork in and of itself. I really loved creativity and people that make things in the world. And that kind of just intrigued me, getting artwork up in more spaces around the world. And I'm describing a business that is not the business we run today. Like, it evolved since then.
Yeah.
But the goal of it was a two-sided marketplace, bringing artists together with public spaces like restaurants and cafes for sale to the public. And that was kind of how it evolved. There's always, even while I was doing that, I was working in a lab on producing alternative fuels. I just liked the physical and the digital, right? Like how you put those two together always.
There's also just always been this challenge for artists to get an audience before they've got, gallery representation, right? They might have their work, and sometimes they might have really high quality work, but art world has its set of standards, like, oh, you're an amazing artist, but you're only 22. Come back to us when you're 52, and then we'll talk. And there's like a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on. And then on the buyer's side, there's just like so much uncertainty. Like, well, who am I supposed to buy? Am I supposed to buy art that appreciates, or is it even
Yeah,
okay to buy art that's just like on my walls, or do I just stick up posters of Pink Floyd, or like, what do I do?
yeah,
There's
yeah.
just like a lot of. So I'm wondering, like, if any of that kind of art world status quo played a role in how you were thinking about things.
I kind of walked into it in a funny way. I think I learned a lot about that as I went along. I didn't even realize when I did this that there was this intense accessibility problem, right? Not just like, oh, I can't find this thing. Like, you need a certain type of screw and you can't find it because it only is at this certain type of hardware store. Not even that type of problem. Like, there's an accessibility problem of there's gatekeepers, and I didn't understand that when I started. I thought about it more of just there's cool artwork and people would like it if they could find it easily. So let's make it more accessible just practically. Then as we got involved, we understood much better. And there's two different, I would say there's kind of two different art worlds that artists play in. I'm sure there's many more than two, but two that I really think about a lot. And there's kind of that world you're describing, which is this like blue chip art gallery world where they're like, you want whomever famous person, Johnny Depp, to buy your artworks that everybody thinks is valuable, or the Gagosian, or a museum to buy it or to collect it. And then there's this other world of art where people are creating and they're selling it in all different avenues. And that's the world that we really exist in, right? And that was the world that I got into early. It's really independent artists, and independent in the sense of they're not represented, right? They don't have a record label, so to speak, or a gallery. And that was really the world we got into, and the world that I really enjoy. It's much more in line with my personality. It's about the work that you're creating, and does it resonate with people enough, and is it unique enough and different enough and special enough that people are like, I want that, that's different, that's cool, just because of that, not because again some famous person bought it, or the Gagosian, or some other gallery's collecting it.
Yeah, so maybe let's jump ahead to like Indiewalls. Walk us through what's your standard kind of customer engagement look like, and what's that life cycle look like? So a customer comes to you, what are they looking for? How do you like connect them up with the right artist? How do you get that art over to them? How do you get it? Like, walk us through that whole process. And this is an AI podcast, so along the way, maybe start talking about some of the data exhaust that's happening there, and that'll get us all in the back of our minds, like churning away on like, oh, okay, like where's the machine learning and the AI coming in?
Yeah,
Like, is it in
yeah.
the matchmaking with the artist and the buyer? Is it in the content itself somehow? Like, yeah.
So a lot of what we do is we are matchmaking. That is our job. How do we find the right artist for the right project? So right now we're doing a bunch of work for Virgin Cruise Line. Virgin has a very specific brand and aesthetic, and they want artists that jive with their brand and aesthetic. So we're looking for the right artist that fits that aesthetic, and they'll come to us, either a designer who's designing the cruise, a hotel, an office. We've done a bunch of Amazon's offices. They'll come and say, we need something. This is our aesthetic. This is what we're looking for. And then we have a team of curators who are really going through a catalog to figure out what the right artwork is. We're then picking it for them. We're then licensing it or acquiring it for them. We do the printing and framing when there is printing and framing. Sometimes we're doing big site-specific installations, so there's none of that. But if there's printing and framing, we're doing it. And we're kind of handling everything soup to nuts. Everything kind of flows through us. And we make it really easy for the client, and we help the artists get access to these projects they wouldn't get access to otherwise. So when I had originally started, I don't know, are you familiar with like 99 Designs or Odesk or kind of these like matchmaking websites, or Upwork? Do you know Upwork?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So Upwork's like, you post an open call, contractors pitch to you on this open call, and you can then pick one of them. So matchmaking has always been our challenge. How do we pair up the artist and the buyer and do it as efficiently as possible? And I used to try and do it more through a marketplace approach, right? So, or an open call approach, I would say. That was part of the idea. We've also used Mechanical Turk to try and tag all the artwork properly, such that it was easier to search. So we've used a lot of different methods. The truth is, right now, our main method is just brute force. It's a team of people that really brute force it. It's been really, really hard to use some sort of algorithm or system that's operationalized to pick the right artwork for a given project.
Yeah, like walk
Go
me
for it.
through what's the what's the challenge there? Like, is it in the articulation of what that aesthetic is? Like, I'm imagining, I don't know, Google seems like a good example. Google's got those big bright colored balls, right? Like yellow, red,
Mhm.
whatever. Like, are you trying to like somehow capture the articulation of that aesthetic? And then when your search team is going in there and trying to like manually find this person, is it because the costs of an error are so high and the benefits of getting the right person is important, therefore it's worthy of having humans involved at that level? And like, what are they looking for? Like,
Yeah.
like what are the kinds of things that humans are looking for to do that match?
Yeah. So the prediction engine is really, really hard. And yeah, the cost is high in the sense that, I always used to compare it to an OTA, like an online travel agent, like Kayak or something. I used to be like, well, everybody would have thought you wanted a travel agent because those were free. And then you can use Kayak, which is also free, but you have to do it all on your own. But everybody wanted to use Kayak because it was much better because you could kind of control the process. But in reality, in the commercial world, people don't want to have that experience. They don't want the experience of searching, right? So if you don't nail it in a search engine, right? If they either put in an open call or they type something into our catalog and it doesn't get pretty quickly the results of what they want, they're done. They're like, I don't have time for this. This is not what I want to be doing right now. I need exactly what I'm looking for real fast. And I realized that because we tried to push it for 2 or 3 years, and really tried to hone the system. And yeah, I think just in the B2B world, especially in the high end commercial world, commercial design world, people want things quickly and they want it to be real accurate. We weren't able to do that really from a technology standpoint. The interesting thing is I use do you use Loom at all? Like the video recording, screen recording, whatever. It's great
I
software.
have a little bit, yeah, but I'm not a big user of it.
So one of the coolest AI features in Loom that I find is you do a whole video recording and then Loom actually titles the video for you.
Yeah.
And its ability to title the video based on what you said in a 5-minute video, it will title 5 words. And you're like, that is way better title than I would have ever come up with for that video. The AI is really good.
We actually
I,
have a project running where we're doing a lot of that kind of stuff, where we're taking an hour video, nailing the title, nailing the summaries, writing all the YouTube chapters, all the YouTube
right,
summaries, and all that. Yeah, you can get the machine learning systems, the AI systems do really well at that.
right. So they're really good at that. And that experience is really magical. And it's awesome to hear that you're doing that. Like I haven't seen it yet there. Like I'll play with Mid Journey and try and just even toy with it to see how close can it get to the vision of what I'm trying to describe? Like if you describe to me the artwork that you want for your home, I'm just curious, how would you describe what you like in your home? Like what's your artwork in your home? Or what do you want it to be?
That's a hard question to answer. We're obsessed with buying art, so we're like the our art is all from our travels. So we travel a
Okay.
lot, and wherever we are, we're buying from local artists that we meet, talk to, engage with. As far as the aesthetic goes, it's easier to talk about what we don't want. We don't care if it matches the couch or not. Like that's like a major no-no. Um,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we don't have giant wall space because it's just every square millimeter of our house is plastered with art. So
Okay.
so size is kind of a thing, but it's really hard to articulate. Like we were in Florence last summer, and
Okay.
we were just riding our bikes around town, and we kind of stumbled upon this like antique kind of flea market-y antique place. And there's like these little
Nice.
shops, and then we just kind of wandered in the shop, and I'm like, this guy's got some cool stuff. So I'm looking through
Yeah.
it, and they're like old lithographs. And I find, and there's like, I don't know, like 500 pieces here. I went in and picked like one piece right off the bat. I'm like, how much for this? And he's like,
Yeah.
whatever, it's like a few $100. I was like, okay, I want it. And then later on, like, he didn't speak a lot of English. My Italian's terrible. But we started talking, and he comes by and he's like, well, Macari. And I'm like, no, I don't know who Macari is. He's like, Macari, he's like one of the best Italian painters. He's like, literally, you just bought his piece. And I'm like, oh, I did. He's like, oh my God. So he comes back,
Right.
he drops this book off, and he's like, you need to know about Macari because you just bought one of his prints, and like your eye,
Okay.
you honed in on the best piece I have in this entire place immediately. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like
Right.
super
Just
picky
went
about it. I
Spoke
hate
to
a
you.
lot of art, but there's stuff that I love right away. And it just spoke because it's like this, it's kind of this like trapeze group of these, these like acrobatic people abstracted. It was like in this really cool pink color, and I don't know how to describe it, but it was like a good piece. But anyway, like I have no idea how to describe the art in our house. It's all over
Right.
the map. There's abstract pieces, there's representational pieces, there's super realistic pieces. A ton of it's from travels, and a ton of it's from friends that are artists that trade with my wife, who's like an professional artist too. So
Right. Right.
yeah.
Right. 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 So even that whole explanation of the artwork in your house, I wouldn't say it's that, like, I think sometimes often designers have a little bit more honed in, but a lot of times it's that, right? It's like, I kind of know what I like. I want it to be a certain type of vibe of colorfulness, or a certain, mirroring a certain aesthetic of, I want it to feel somewhat industrial. But then when you get down into it, it's hard to nail it exactly. And I don't know what humans do and how they can kind of hone and envision, but a curatorial team, they kind of start broad, and it'll be pretty focused in their broadness. And then you'll start to hear in a conversation with a designer, you're going through the presentation with them, and they're starting to gravitate towards some areas of the presentation. And that helps the curator kind of hone what that person's talking about. And artwork's just so particular. Like, I also don't know what I would like. My wife's Colombian, and we were in Colombia, and there was this, I would never have thought that I would have liked like a pre-Columbian sculpture. And this guy does these sculptures now, and they're modeled after pre-Columbian sort of sculptures. And I would have never thought I would have liked it, but there was something about it. There was something about him, and there was something about the artwork that just spoke to me. And as you see it, you kind of hone in on what you like. And so I think AI can do it at some point. There's something happening in the human brain as they describe the combination of visual and audio that's happening. But I'm not seeing yet even enough where I'm like, oh, I'm going to dedicate a ton of resources yet. Where I'm like, okay, I could pull together a discussion with visuals and audio that an AI would be able to pull that together and say, okay, this is the type of artwork this person's really talking about. Let me pull out more of this. That's the challenge.
I mean, maybe it's search requires you to be able and capable of articulating what you're after, and that can be a problem here. But what I found is people know what they don't like, and you can
Yes.
give them A Bs, and you like, which would you rather have on like this wall? So there's like a lot of sites that have that kind of thing. Like you take a picture of your living room,
Yes.
the spot, and you like A B stuff, and that kind of
Hmm.
interface, it feels like could hone in pretty quickly. And then you could basically like A B, yes, no, 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 yes, no, 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 yes, 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 and then better, 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 better. Okay, that's good. And now we can
Hmm.
reverse engineer the attributes of what wound up there and the attributes of the space. And now we have
Yeah.
like a query, if you will, that can go and find it in an AI-ish context to go further.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say two comments, because the first one was like, it's hard when people don't know exactly what they want. I actually think I go back to this Loom thing, because I wouldn't, and probably your software, it's similar in that somebody's saying a whole lot of things. The AI is pretty good at pulling out what the most important ones are of what that person's saying.
Yeah,
I don't even know how you do it. You could probably tell me better how it works, but I don't
sure.
know
I could
what
talk about it all
happens.
day.
And I'll be curious to hear about it. But the other piece of it, there's a lot of that sort of like A B. People lose. It's even with that. Like, I don't like this. I do like this. Artwork is so infinitely variable, and the nuance of it is so hard to nail. I mean, even remember Pandora. Like, they were the music genome, and they've kind of gotten it at this point. Spotify's pretty good. Like, if I pick a song, it's going to show me other songs within that genre that I do like pretty well. I still find it like not discovering as much as I would like it, like not discovering as well as I would like. And I think that visual art is even harder when there's multiple medias.
I mean, it sounds like your business context is one where it's not only about art selection, but it's also about articulating the why. Like it sounds like you almost have a design team that's like presenting. Like
Mm,
like how you hire a designer to like redo your whatever, and
totally.
they'll go off and they'll explore this complicated set of large permutation of possibilities, and then they'll come back and they'll usually give you like one option or two,
Yes.
but never more than three. And the thing that they're really good at is getting a bunch of like high powered execs to sort of, it's like a toddler, right? Like, do you want to wear the red pants or the green pants? You got to get them down to a choice space where you're happy as a
Yes.
designer. And I
Yes.
imagine you have a similar problem where
Totally.
you've got like this set of, I don't know, corporate buyers that are not fully on the same page themselves. And so it's not only about giving them the final option, it's about prepping that option in a way where they've got like a couple of options or maybe a few, but they're happy
Definitely.
with it because they feel like you did a bunch to get them there. And if they just
Yeah.
got there because your machine's doing it, then they're back like looking and flipping and looking and flipping and changing their minds and debating.
Interesting. Interesting. That's an interesting thought, that part of them determining that they liked it was actually the process that you went through and the work that you went through. And that's part of how it's getting them to a decision, even though if you had shown it to, I think what you're saying is if I showed them the end result in the beginning, they might not have even wanted it. But part of it is they're like, okay, they honed it down for me. We went through this process. Now I feel confident about the decision. Is that
Oh
what you're
yeah,
saying?
like brand designers, designers that like do logos and branding. They will
Yeah.
never they will never meet with you and then like the next time you meet, just like, boom, here's the design. Okay, catch you later. Like never. That would never, ever, ever happen. Because they know, like, without all of that story building and then the how did
Mm,
we get
mm,
there, they're taking you on a journey. So
totally.
you're like latching on to them. And I think that's
Totally.
part of the challenge with our machines that are so capable of delivering such like poignant insights so fast is we dismiss them because they were so easy to get to. It's like when people talk to
Mm,
ChatGPT 4 and they're like, hey, like deep mental health conversation or something, they just ignore it. But they don't ignore their own therapist because there's like a social element and there's like a
mm,
relationship and a rapport. And I imagine the fact that you're in a scenario where you can afford and it makes sense for you to have like people in that conversation and doing that, it makes sense to me that you would want your buyer in that journey a little bit.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought process. I mean, we think about the journey a lot. We think about it a lot from the perspective of like what we're creating. Like we're really about the story that we're creating in the space, and we work on telling the story. And we do a video with the artists and the designers, and kind of creating that whole story, that how it came to be and what it's all about. But even in the process, yeah, I definitely would agree. I mean, I think there are cases, there are obviously outliers where somebody's just like, "Yep, got it. Let's move along. Like that's perfect.
Oh,
Let's just do it." That definitely happens, certain types of buyers. But definitely a lot of the time it is a whole process, and part of what makes it amazing is that they're like, this was my creative process to get here. And the artwork can be super complex and unique, and it could be like a 40-foot hanging installation sculpture, and there's all this nuance in it. So there's definitely a lot of that, and definitely our goal is that our curators do take people on that journey, and there is an experience there.
is that usually the case where your buyer has a space already known and now they
Mm.
need a specific singular work for it? Or is it like, we need like 300 pieces to go into this whole building complex that we're building or something like that?
Yeah, so that piece, like that piece I was even describing, was for Amazon, but Amazon had 20 different locations, and they wanted really local, original, custom artworks. And so that was that type. I might have a hotel. Sometimes a hotel comes to us. We just need artwork for the guest rooms. Same in every single guest room. Two pieces in each guest room. One near the bed. One in the bathroom. Help us find it. Once we do that, then yeah, it's 300, it's 600 pieces in total, 300 of each piece. And that's somewhat simpler. I mean, we're probably like, we can do that pretty well and affordably, but that's not where we excel. We excel in the complex and in the story. So yeah, like with so many things, I'm sure you have so many different types of use cases of buyers that are looking and what they're trying to do. And I feel like that's often the case.
It sounds like your scenario, though, generally is corporate buyers. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. We do not work with residential buyers.
And then your artists and they're generally buying existing works or works yet to be created.
I would say there's something in between generally, but more often than not, it's original works, like new custom works. sometimes it's like, I really like this print. Can I have it cropped in a specific way, or can I have it color changed, or I want it to be horizontal instead of vertical? Like there's changes that people will make, or requests being made by the artist. So almost everything that we do is not just like, this piece existed, I'm buying this existing piece exactly as it was. That's less common for us, maybe like 25% of the time.
That's interesting. Like, what's driving that? Is it the buyers just really want to have like unique requirements? Like it's a hotel chain with a specific room that's got a specific layout and a specific dimensions, or is it they want to exert their kind of preferences on the work somehow?
Yeah, and I think this even gets back a little bit to why we struggle with AI, because there's all this iteration happening. It's not just, okay, I found the piece, now I'm good. But I think there's two things. One is scale. So most artists don't create scale at the work that like standardly at the work that we want it created. So they might have a couple pieces, but the majority of their pieces are a smaller scale. And so this is going to be a custom piece because it's going to be larger, because they're more of the work they're selling is for residential. So that's one. And then two is, yeah, there's something very particular about their space, about the color, about the design of it that they want to incorporate in some way. We have a client that's working with us, and they're like, we were working with a different art consultancy, and we saw that they put artwork in a building near ours that's a couple of the pieces are the same that's in our building. They're done. They're dead to us. And I don't know, totally dead to them, but they were ticked. And they want something that's special and unique to them. They don't want to walk into another place and be like, oh, that's the same thing that I got in my space.
Do you have challenges with the artists willing to do custom work? Like my wife always, anytime somebody asks for a custom piece, her answer is always a retelling of this story where she used to do these like huge lithographs in black and white, and they were super detailed works. And she sold one to this guy, and the guy said, "Hey, I love this piece, but can you frame it for me?" She's like, "I don't do framing. It's like really complicated framing." And then eventually he's like, "Come on, like I can't buy the piece. Let's frame it." But so she agrees to frame it, and she's framing it. And then along the way, she cuts her finger, and it like bleeds, and like a little bit of blood gets on to like part of the
Oh
piece.
no.
And so she's like, "Oh my God." It turns out she was able to like totally eliminate it. The guy comes back, she gets the whole thing framed perfectly, and he starts freaking out. He's not looking at the place where the blood got onto the piece. He's looking at a completely other part of the thing, and he's like, "This isn't the print that I bought." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, I mean, I don't remember this detail." And she's like, "Look, in 40 years, if you're not looking at this piece and noticing new things, then I failed." So like the fact that you're noticing new things is good. So she got so
Yeah.
pissed, she just vowed she's never going to do a custom work. And so that's I'm like
Yeah.
wondering if you have some challenges there when you're doing something as subjective as like an art piece, and now you have to like satisfy a group of folks who are buying. Like, is it straightforward, or is there some kind of massaging that happens post creation as well?
Oh my gosh. I would say a lot of our job is the reason that companies work with us is to navigate working with artists. And often the reason that artists work with us is because a company like Amazon might say, we don't pay any money up front. You just got to do it, and then we'll pay you after. And we'll say, okay, well, one, we have the capital, and two, we have the appreciation of the situation that we'll do it. We'll float it in between.
Well, and
And
Amazon's going to pay. Like you have a better
yeah,
sense of
I'm not
the
worried.
artists
Yeah,
get screwed
exactly.
constantly, so they're
Totally.
they're not going to.
Right. So, oh yeah, we know how to manage that whole situation. We know how to deal with their finance team, our finance team, talk to their finance team, the contracts, the lawyers, all that stuff. So I think that we really navigate the in between, and we try and, we've experienced a lot of different issues on both ends. We've experienced the situation where the client didn't pay and they did a bunch of work. We've experienced the situation where we paid all the money to the artists and then they disappeared. I just dealt with that recently, where an artist was like, sorry, I can't do this, but I already spent money on the materials, so I'm keeping the deposit you gave me. So we got to like figure out how to work both of those things. And yeah, the asking artists to make changes, we're really careful about
Oh, and they
not
don't
committing
like
to a
that.
client. Yeah, a lot of them don't like it. Some of them are super happy to do it. They're like, I get to work. Like, you're gonna pay me. You're gonna pay me 50% before I start making any changes, and then I'm gonna make money on this piece, and it's gonna go somewhere where people are gonna see it. Cool. I'm excited to do it. Some are like, not. And we've done this enough that we're very upfront about, I'm contacting you about this piece. I haven't committed anything to the client yet. we're going to want you to make these changes. We know how meaningful this is to you. If you don't want to do it, totally cool. We'll call somebody else. And I think we just have an appreciation, understanding of how meaningful art is, like this piece that is a part of them that they created is to them.
You're listening to Your AI Injection, brought to you by Xionyx.com. That's XYONIX.com. Check out our website for more content, or if you need help injecting AI into your organization. So kind of going back to AI a little bit, where do you see, if not in the brokering of artist and buyer, where are some areas that you see AI playing a role in your business?
Yeah. So two things. First of all, I do see it in brokering. I don't see it there yet. I am very hyper aware of wanting to make sure that I am not the last person to be like, oh man, one of our competitors or some new company came and they just figured out how to broker it. Because we started out as a technology company. We were building technology. So I definitely have an appreciation for it. And I think it will get there. I just don't know when, because I see how AI works. I see how ChatGPT works and how good they are. It will definitely happen. I just haven't figured it out. Like, I haven't seen enough of something that would give me confidence there. So that's one piece. I think the piece, a lot of people talk about, well, is art in its traditional form going to go away? Especially, two-dimensional printed artworks. Like, AI can do it. Why would anything happen? Why would somebody pay an artist to do it if they could just have it done for free? I do think that AI will be, it will be a new medium that people use in artwork creation. Kind of where the AI ends is where the creativity will begin for artists, and how they manipulate it will be something new and different. And kind of like when printing came out, everybody thought that artwork was dead because people were just going to reprint it. Okay, so then people had to figure out what prints were and how those worked and the value of them. Digital photography changed the way that people thought about photography. What did that mean? Photoshop changed the way that people thought about all imagery that was digital.
Yeah, I mean, photography to realism, like realistic painters, everyone was like freaked out. I mean, it's an old case, and nobody's impressed with something that just pops out of the box and spits something out and can do it repeatedly on anything. Like, at some point, art's usually bigger than that, and kind of more around questioning and stuff. So where in your business do you see some inefficiencies where some automation could really help? So for example, I'm just saying this as an example, maybe this is not a problem, but like when your team is assembling candidates for art, they might still be involved in that process, but maybe it takes a couple of days for them to get the right thing, and then better tooling to get them kind of more efficiently to the point of their final selection that they're going to go to the buyer with might be a case where you have inefficiencies. Maybe it's in a totally different arena. Like, maybe it's in the contract reviewing phase. That would be the place that because like we do this a lot, where we just help folks try to figure out how AI would, could benefit them. But a lot of times, like, one tactic that's really works well is figuring out where you have human bottlenecks. A lot of time, energy is spent trying to do something. Trying to understand that process more can usually give you clues.
Yeah. So one of the things we've been using a little bit, I don't know if you've heard of Gamma. It's a different AI like presentation app that helps you kind of just automatically put the presentations together. And that's one thing we've been playing with to try, and a big part of what we do is put these presentations together, which I always find to be very like silly and annoying that we send PDF presentations to our clients, but that's just always how they want to see them. As much as I've tried to change the way that they do that. But even that, like, how do we put the presentation together so that everything lines up properly right from the beginning? The titles are there, the artwork is kind of laid out in the right way, and that just like kind of happens quickly and efficiently. So Gamma's one app that I've been playing with. There are others, and trying to do that in a very automated way, that takes, in total of our team, definitely hours every week. Many hours of our week every week is just putting all the information into these presentations before you're sending them off to the client. So automating that is something we've been trying to do to some extent. One of the things, we write a lot about the story of the artists. We're trying to take their bios and reconfiguring them. We're trying to figure out how to write good copy about why this artist is a good fit, or how they fit in with the story of the property or the story of the town or what have you. So we have our team using Bard or ChatGPT a bunch to spit out those stories or reinterpret the artist's bio or shorten them. So a lot of that sort of storytelling is happening through ChatGPT, Bard. Those are some of the ways that we really like to use it. We've been trying to use, like I was saying before, Midjourney to brainstorm concepts of artwork in advance. Like, how do we kind of help the client really rapidly get some ideas of the type of thing they want or what the space might look like, etc. That's been less successful. We've been trying with that a little bit.
Let's talk about that. That sounds kind of interesting. So, because you got a lot of control, are you thinking almost use Midjourney to create an image, like in some imagery that you use as a query to then go find artists that are kind of like that imagery output or something?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, we were working on a hotel in Buffalo and they had some very specific parameters that they wanted. And so I don't even exactly remember what the parameters were. This happened a couple weeks ago, but the curators put it in to Midjourney to try and narrow down maybe this is kind of what they're looking for. It was harder to do. And I think that they could get better at prompting, like our team could get better at prompting. And if they got better at prompting, they might be able to get to a place where they're like, okay, this is kind of the visual that I'm looking for. Yes, this is within the arena, without having to find an artwork exactly like that they could then go to the client and say, is this kind of the purview of what you're looking for? And then find other artwork that's similar. We've done like little testing. So we did one where we were talking to a client about if they had wanted a tree installation made out of books and having the AI visualize what that would look like. And then the AI could say, or the designer could say, that is what I was envisioning. Or maybe, you know what, actually, now that I see this visual of it, I want the binding on the inside versus facing out, or I want the books to be different colors or all the same color. I want the books to be cut up or not, or I wanted an oak tree, not a willow, And so I think helping them to visualize what it might look like with the AI, especially when you're doing custom work, is a really quick way to start iterating with them. We're just in the beginning phases of trying to play with that.
I mean, that feels like a really promising avenue. I mean, we had a filmmaking company that's using a lot of AI on the program earlier, and they were doing very similar things with a set director like planning out a particular scene. They would leverage some generative imagery to like do the sketches and actually like
Yeah.
sketch out the scene, like how many bar stools are there and like what does a dingy bar look like, and we wanted a little bit more Western or a little bit more middle-aged or something. And that general avenue seems quite promising. What kinds of problems are you seeing there? Getting the imagery out of the generative side so that it feels like it's in the ballpark, or is it the marrying it up with the existing catalog of artists and art?
I think like several people are probably experiencing right now. Probably the biggest challenge is getting the people to really repeatedly use it until they start figuring out how to use it well, people on our team. And we're actually doing we have a company retreat once a year, and part of the retreat we're going to just spend talking about we did a questionnaire in advance. How can we see using these tools specifically in that way? How can people get better at it? And it's a lot of just pushing them to use it until they get better at it, because it just takes time. It takes time to use it. One solution to that is you hire somebody who that's just their prerogative. Like, use AI to generate this imagery to get this project started and on as many projects as you can. So I haven't jumped into that yet, but I think you don't nail it right away. I don't know if that's been your experience especially with Midjourney. It doesn't
No,
nail like.
yeah, no, I mean, and not only Midjourney, just your whole problem space is a little bit bigger, right? Like, it's definitely requires an iterative process. I think
Exactly.
part of it is like, it sounds like a lot of the times you have a space, you have at least conversation on the buyer's side of the kinds of stuff they want. So I mean,
Mhm.
I might back up a little bit and start with like, I would assemble a dossier on the space and their
Mm,
requirements, right? So the
yeah.
dossier might have like images and shots of the space, and then there's going to be text as well. So there's going to be people describing things, like maybe they talk a bunch about something that sounds like a chandelier-ish sculpture-y thing. Maybe they talk a bunch about stuff like on the walls. But I would try to capture that conversation, capture the general ideas that they're after, and try to capture the context and image space. Then I might like characterize the visuals in some way. And then from all of that, I would probably start by having someone who's just amazing on your curation team at going straight to solution, and then like record exactly what they're doing, like, and
Yeah.
get into their mind a lot more to figure out like, what is it about that. And I'm going to call that the query. The query is the like space description and the conversation around it. That's the query. And then the question is like finding candidate assets. and reducing those down and figuring out like what's going through their head. Typically, like designers have heuristics that they're following, and they might not think that way or articulate it that way, but that's just the way the human mind works.
Totally.
If it's like a big old empty warehouse and there's like, some huge wood beams, there's going to be a rule that fires inside of, anyone who's an interior designer is like, ooh, I like those beams. We're going to like expose those things.
Yes.
There might be like
Yes.
one person who flunked out of design school who doesn't think that way, but like everyone else is going to go that direction. Like they might be like, oh, let's put some sheetrock over that. But like that's the person out. And then there's going to be like lighting considerations. So there's going to be rules around that. Like, hey, do we want a darker space? Do we want a lighter space? Do we want it to be warm? Do we want it to be colder and modern? And like that's going to drive stuff. So like that decision tree, I think, is part of what you want to capture through observation of your humans. And then I'm thinking that if you can articulate it a little bit, then you can start to formulate the transformation into like a more formal query, against your imagery kind of stock set. So for example, like what I would do, like the way I would approach this is probably from two angles. One is that angle, but the other angle is from the artist and asset angle. So like I would want to characterize the assets too, and I would leverage a bunch of like AI systems on that side too. So I would want to know, okay, there's like a lot of questions like what dimensions can this artist even produce? Like maybe their studio just doesn't let them go above 4 feet square because they live in a little apartment in Manhattan or whatever. So like I would want all that practical stuff, like figure out like what's the volume they can produce. Oh, it's one person, it's not a team. They do super, photorealistic paintings that, take on average 3 months to create one. I'd want to capture all that kind of stuff. I'd want to capture their color palette that they're typically working in. Then I'd want to like dig into the art itself. And that's where you can use a lot of generative technology quite well to like characterize it. So imagine like a really great art curator looking at a piece and describing it, let's say writing half a paragraph about it, like what it actually is, getting the machine to do that. And now you've got yourself a catalog of media assets and artists that you can constrain on. And all of that is sort of a combination of maybe human well-prescribed descriptions of the assets and machine-generated descriptions of the assets. And then you've got that high-level query that you've formulated from the dossier, and now you have to like marry the two. And in the early stages, use all your humans as possible to like figure out how to like describe the work and figure out how to describe the space and desire. And then, you matchmake and get that sort of process more efficient. That would be my general approach.
That sounded really simple.
Well, we do this all day long. This is what we do. So, and we're literally building a system like this that's not for art, for totally different application, but like.
Yeah.
Perhaps you're not sure whether AI can really transform your business. Maybe you don't know what it means to inject AI into your business. Maybe you need some help actually building models. Check us out at xionyx.com. That's XYONIX.com. Maybe we can help.
Yeah. I guess I'm curious, when you're doing this, where do you find it to like it works the most seamlessly and the most effectively, and where do you find it to be that you have the biggest challenges when it comes to implementing AI to like create the query and get the data set and put the output? Where is it most successful? Where is it hardest?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in this particular problem, the hard part is that finickiness / particularness of art, because it's not like give me a picture of a dog on a beach with the beach ball, in the sun. Like that's straightforward, it's direct, it's whatever. So this is more creative, like going back to like the Google stuff scenario. Like I want like you have to articulate the constraints somehow, so it'd be like bright and fun and colorful. Like there's a million artists that Google would never pick,
Yes. Totally. Exactly.
They're never going to pick Francis Bacon like to represent the work in their offices. Like we don't need slabs of meat and like bloody faces and stuff everywhere. Like that's not going to go with the office space, right? So part of it is like articulating the like the essence of what they're kind of like about. And I do think people can like free form that in language. And you could get a back and forth dialogue to like hone that. And the reason I think that is because designers do that all day and night long. And I bet your folks are doing that. And they're and so you asked like what's the hard part? I think capturing the intent in a way that is like queryable is hard in this case, and characterizing the media assets in a way that lets you do that is maybe not hard, but maybe you miss some stuff. Like you'd need some iterations there. So like maybe, it's not just about dimensions. It's not just about maybe there's like a lot more emotional contribution that needs to be there when training the models.
Even as you speak, I'm like, well, it would be kind of cool if we were able to create a set of questions for a client that was on a phone call, it was on audio, that was like, if they answer these questions while we're talking to them and freeform it, and somebody's very good at asking them, continuing to ask them deeper and deeper questions about the artwork, that an AI could listen to that call, somehow distill it into what really it is that they're talking about, because we knew the right questions to ask them. Because even when I asked you about what type of artwork you like, I didn't get it really. But maybe if I had a really good set of questions for you that I took you through, maybe as you described it, an AI would be able to interpret it really well based on the types of questions that I'm asking you. And it could do it through just the audio listening to it. And I wonder if that could then be distilled enough where it could understand enough to propose the right type of artwork. Because the query is the whole thing. You have to describe it that the query is good enough, that something that's accurate as to what you like.
Yeah, I mean, here's like this is kind of a fun exercise because we're just sort of brainstorming and talking about it. But I might start with ChatGPT 4, like skip BART, it's nowhere near as good, and skip GPT 3.5, it's nowhere near as good. GPT 4 is amazing and off the charts. And I might start with posing the scenario. So I'd be like, all right, you are an art curator hired by a company to select art for a particular space. Your first task, and this would be prompt 1, like the scene description prompt, is to ask a series of questions that lets you characterize the space well. And I might start by saying, ask only one question at a time. And boom, there's your dialogue. Now you go back and forth. And even with ChatGPT 4, you also say, oh, and along the way, every time you get a response to your question, I want you to update your characterization of the scene. This is a template of a prompt that we use all the time with GPT-4, and it will. And then just try it. Take a space, talk to it, and answer its questions. And I'm pretty sure this would work well. Like in the room I'm in, by the end of its 5 or 6 or 10 questions, you would be like, yeah, that's my space. That describes my space. So that would be the kind of one place I'd start. And then I'd take that whole methodology and I would apply it to what they want. So you have a finicky art buyer. There's a set of them. They need to answer a series of questions in order for you to characterize what they're looking for. And I want you to first, and I want you to generate, and you'll have to kind of go back and forth with it. And so then you'd start, and it would, and like, maybe you try it out on the Google scenario, and it would say like, is there any particular color theme that you like? And they're like, yeah, we like bright colors, bright blues and yellows and reds, and yeah, and that's it, and nothing depressing, please. Okay, and then it would say, well, what kind of space, like what kind of emotions, do you find really important, to capture? Oh, well, we want people to be inspired, we want people to be happy, we don't want anything depressing, we don't want anything sad, we don't want anything like dark. Through that back and forth, you can formulate a prompt that will get it to like understand the context. And I think you could get yourself to a paragraph on the what they want, a paragraph on the space. And I'm pretty sure at that point you could go back to GPT-4 and you can say, hey, so assume that you have, some a catalog of media assets like art that's labeled by a set of attributes. Tell me what set of attributes I should label it for. Like if you're making a really exhaustive search for this scenario, it'll tell you, it's not gonna get it 100%, but it'll get it 90%. It'll get it better than any human you talk to. Then you're like, okay, now you can tell it, okay, so hey, you have a catalog of media assets that have these attributes that you got through back and forth with GPT-4. And you have this characterization of the space, and you have this characterization of what a client wants. I want you to formulate a set of keyword queries to query this system with attribute constraints where appropriate to find the optimal artwork. And then just see what it does. And at that point, if all that stuff is pretty on the ball and reasonable and vets with what your designers are doing anyway, now you can go build the system if that's what
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that idea. I hadn't even thought about, using GPT-4 to do that in that way and kind of creating the prompt system. But I think that could be really interesting and a fun thing to try and test out. Because I think that is the challenge. How do you create the right prompting?
Yeah, I mean, like my meta answer to everyone about just about anything is have an extended conversation with GPT-4 before you ever talk to me. Because I'm like super busy, got a lot going on. And it's going to answer, like, it's going to get you to 90% of what I would say on the topic. So there's no point in me repeating what it's all like humanity needs to learn how to use this thing at this point. And they're not used to it and they don't get it. But once you're really good at it, it's just amazing. Like I use it for everything from specking out products to writing code to like writing proposals, like just everything. It's just it's not worth doing anything without it. Like
I do use it a lot. Like I use it for a bunch of different contracts that I do. I use it for brainstorming, commission structures for people. I've definitely used it a bunch, but I think the more you use it, the more comfortable you are using it, the more you understand how to iterate with it. And it's really a commitment to do it and to not be like, oh, let me just go to the old way that I used to do it. It's so easy when you're not super familiar, just go the old school way.
As humans, we're evolving really rapidly. And part of that essential evolution is how to interact with these systems. And like I myself, if I look at the kinds of stuff I'm using these models for now versus 5 months ago, I mean, it's been a journey. Like at first it was like just fascination with stuff that now just seems trivial, that my brain knows immediately, I got this. There's no reason I would ever go anywhere else for that info. But now it's like, it's this kind of thing that I'm describing for you is like a next level up that I've learned that it's not like question answer. It's like dialogue construction and asking this thing to like listen to me and extract data from the dialogue. That's the template. And I'm using that template all over the place. And there's probably a bunch more that I haven't even figured out yet, but like that other people are figuring out. And
totally.
Yeah, we're all just kind of evolving because we're like adapting to what the machines do better than us and what we do better than it and trying to get somewhere.
Yeah, totally. It's good. It's good to be pushed along and it's good to try and think about alternative ways of going through the prompting and stuff like that.
I guess maybe I'll end with one last question. It's always my favorite question. If we jump out 5 years into the future, like what do you think this, your marketplace or art marketplaces in general look like if all this machine learning and AI kind of gets somewhere? Like how do you think, people are buying art and all that?
Yeah, it is so hard. 5 years is also so long in this world. I think it will really be about discovery. I think that more so than creation, I think it will be about discovery. And like what you said, it's really about that process of discovery. And I think that AI, I'm sure there's so much that I'm not thinking of, but I guess in my simplest right now view, it seems to me like it'll be that it can really understand who you are, what you're about, what you're trying to do without you needing to be incredibly good at prompting, but just from other inputs of other things that you're doing. It pulls from the emails you sent and the drawings you've done and the different pieces of information that it can pull from the apps that it's plugged into and be like, this is really where I think this project is going. This is who I think you should know about. This is what I think you should be connected to. Like so much of the information, I think that's where it's really helpful, is discovering things that you had not discovered before. This is a little bit of a digression, but I like backpacking a bunch. I used ChatGPT to figure out where I wanted to go backpacking within the Northeast. And it really helped me to just uncover things that I would not have found otherwise, just being like, what types of trails? These are my parameters. What am I looking for? And then it started to hone in and I was like, actually, I want things with more waterfalls on them and peaks that are, over 3,000 feet. Okay, what am I really looking for? It really helped me hone in on what it was and discover things that I wouldn't have discovered otherwise. And I think as it gets better and better, that it was cool because I've never experienced that before, but it was nowhere near the level of nuance that I would like it to have, that I know that it will have. And that was even 4 months ago or 5 months ago. Like, it's just moving so fast. I think it will get to a point where it just really understands well what you want to discover it won't give you the whole thing. It'll give you, this is what you should be looking into and understanding and learning more about in terms of this artwork. I think that's hopefully where it will go. Hopefully we could be a part of making that happen.
Awesome. Cool.
That's all for this episode. I'm Deep Dhillon, your host, saying check back soon for your next AI injection. In the meantime, if you need help injecting AI into your business, reach out to us at xionyx.com. That's XYONIX.com. Whether it's text, audio, video, or other business data, we help all kinds of organizations like yours automatically find and operationalize transformative insights.